It's been interesting. We screened the movie at a festival outside of a big city, and Joan Chen and I were there to do the Q&A, and we had this woman come up to us after and congratulated Joan, and then said to us, I don't agree with the lifestyle shown in the film, but congrats. And it was so strange that she kind of went out of her way to be homophobic to us,
But they also came to the movie.
Well, so that's something that I have to remember, that as upsetting as that moment was, I have to recognize that maybe that's a first step in this person's journey to understanding the humanity of queer people.
Literally Gaysians.
Literally Gaysians. Surprise, everyone. We're back.
It's AIPI Heritage Month, so we can't just be absent for it.
It's also Q-Tappy Week coming up, which is the mix of AIPI Heritage Month and Pride.
And as Leah and Nuri said in their podcast, when they were recapping being on our podcast, we know how to take up space. So it's AAPI Heritage Month, so we can't be absent for it. It's Q-Tappy Week, so we can't be absent for it. So we're coming to you with a special episode with Andrew On, who's the writer and director of the recent movie that came out that was amazing, The Wedding Banquet. And I think you can buy it on digital right now. So he's going to come on the podcast to talk about the movie, being Gaysian, and a lot of exciting other things. But before we get into that, it's been a few months since we've caught up officially on the podcast. How are you, girl?
I'm still unemployed, but I'm slowly starting to get busy. Like before, I was telling you, like I sit at home a lot, and I still do. But some weeks, Jeremy messaged me looking at my Instagram. It's like, you have been out doing something every day this week, which back in the day, weekdays we did everything, but now people our age, they're home. And I was like, I have rehearsal. I have volleyball. I'm going to watch a film fest. I'm started playing volleyball with Lance. Yeah.
Oh, fun.
And, also, like you said, we're celebrating API Heritage Month, which so happens to be the same time that EDC happens. So it's very apt. And I've been 3D printing and helping people 3D print little accessories for their totems, like this thing for Loki. It holds up this light up bear. So lots of 3D printing, and all in the name of Gaysian culture.
Wait, so are you telling us you're going to go to EDC?
No, I am living through other people by making accessories for them.
I think you're going to go to EDC. I think someone's going to convince you to EDC.
Maybe if someone subsidizes it. I was about to message you earlier going, should we just go to the HomePod?
I don't know if we're allowed there anymore. I think our HomePod privileges have been revoked ever since talking about HomePods on this podcast.
We know people, and I know a 400-something-year-old white man who was invited.
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe if you're a part of the HomePod community, let us know. But I really think, from what I've heard, because we've talked about HomePods so much on this podcast, I don't know, we're welcome.
We didn't give away any secrets that they haven't. So I think, remember, we're there doing research. We're journalists.
We are. Well, for me, what have I been up to? Sometimes I take a personal day off, and I just have a day that you're having. Like I just do laundry, sit around my house and veg with, and because I miss that time so much. And maybe sometimes I wrongfully romanticize it because I was anxious a lot of the time, like you were, because I was just hoping a recruiter would get back to me, or I would get a steady paycheck, which is like looking at my bank account and figuring out how to make it last for however long. But I also missed having all this time to myself and being able to go to a volleyball game or going out and meeting friends on a weeknight. I recently went on a vacation, which I get into in this episode, with my dad, and I think with that I finally got the time to be like, okay, let's think about season 3. I'm so excited. In the meantime, we're gonna do this bonus episode because there's this opportunity to talk to Andrew, So we just had him on, and we're recording this after the fact. So Andrew On is the writer and director and producer of the recent movie, The Wedding Banquet. It came out in theaters last month and is now available for purchase on digital. So support queer Asian artists like Andrew and go purchase that movie on digital and watch it again if you didn't watch it in theaters, or if you also watched it in theaters, which is what we did. I came across Andrew in this community of LA Gaysians, but first through his debut movie Spa Night, and it was a movie about
Spa Night.
it was so good, about like a Korean American coming of age in his parents' Korean spa. And then he is also known as the director of Fire Island, which was written by Joel Kim Booster, about finding identity in the queer community on Fire Island. And now that we're all in this kind of middle-aged Gaysian era, Wedding Banquet really speaks to a lot of the themes that we're exploring about commitment, making choices, thinking about the second half of your life, having kids. And so we get into a really interesting conversation about all those themes with him. Was there anything that was super interesting about that conversation with him, Doja?
Well, I think what happened was, when we were talking about Spa Night, I first saw it when I was a lot younger. And so I thought about how, he made Spa Night when there's a coming of age film, and when I was coming of age in that world, and then later on he's doing Fire Island, where it's our hoe phase, and then now he's talking about like
hoe phase, yes,
the being married, kids, things like that, and things I've have to face and avoid. So like I feel like I'm on the same path, and I liked talking to him about that.
Yeah, and I know that this is you guys still do this because you guys go out more than I do, but I finally convinced Corey to go to Switch, and we went to Switch, and then my friend Steve I'm like, I'm gonna do a little walk around. I'm like, and I was just like teaching Corey, like back in my 30s, we called that a hoe stroll, as if like it was like decades ago. And he's like, what's a hoe stroll? I'm like, it's just go around, be seen, see, like look around, see if you catch anyone's eye, hopefully make out with somebody.
I love doing the hoe walk, the hoe walk, the Fruit Loop, all of those.
Yeah, and yeah, you're right. His movies have really marked like different stages in Gaysian life, like post college. And we talk about why he decided to make those movies and how much of his real life really informs those movies. And then I think obviously The Wedding Banquet has a lot of conversation around having kids. And he's asked us if we wanted to have kids, which is our favorite question to answer because it's not an easy one to answer. And so we really get into that.
I'm so excited. Actually, I was hoping that I could do like a little plug.
Yeah.
Yeah, my drag sister, who we had on, last year in season 1, to talking about when she's one of the OG creators of Drag Queen Story Hour. But these crazy folks, these Proud Boys, stormed into the library, and it was like a rough event for her. And then there's a short film out that she made about it. It's doing the theater circuit, but also just as importantly, she just came out with a book that came out last week, The Queen Bees of Tybee County. I don't know. I just want to really plug it, and it's like about this little. I think it's like this queer basketball boy, much like, I can't read, so we'll see if I ever get through this.
You'll get the audio book. So Panda Dulce is your drag sister. What's the author name?
Author name is Kyle Casey Chu. Come look it up. I just wanted to say that because I think it's important to me and community, because isn't that why we're here, Val? Community.
Yes. The bonus episode for AAPI Heritage Month / QTAPI Week is... There's 3 action items for you. Now, see, I'm in my work area. 3 action items for you as the listener. 1, go watch The Wedding Banquet if you haven't, and watch it again if you have. 2, buy Kyle's book. What's the name again?
The Queen Bees of Tybee County by Kyle Casey Chu.
Yeah. And also, if you are in need of an EDC totem, you can message us and message Doncha, and for hire, he will create a totem for you, 3D printed. So show them the one you just made. That looks pretty cool.
I've got the base here from the Walgreens Bear, and it holds the battery inside it, and goes on a retractable pole, so you don't always have to have this large thing with you. BPM Bear, she's ready.
I am such a capitalist, so we'll find a way for you to make money. 100% of the proceeds go to Don't Just a Fun Employment or Unemployment Fund, including the meager earnings we get from this podcast. But without further ado, we're going to welcome Andrew to the podcast.
Yay.
After this break. Hi, Andrew.
Hi, Andrew.
Hi, how's it going?
Lovely. So the last time I saw you was actually at a wedding banquet, a Gaysian wedding. Kevin and Michael in Puerto Vallarta. And since then, you've come out with the movie, The Wedding Banquet.
Yes, I know, kind of wild. It felt like, I guess that wasn't so long ago. We were there in the fall.
Uh-huh.
At the same time, that's felt like 5 years ago.
Yes.
The wildfires, yeah.
Oh my gosh, yes, so much has happened, but yes, I'm very glad that the movie is out there. I wonder if Kevin and Michael have seen it. I actually don't know.
We'll check in with them.
Okay, cool.
And for at their wedding, did you cry?
I was very emotional because it's so beautiful to see, this celebration of love. I haven't been to many queer weddings actually, and so it was very, very special for me to see.
Was that your first queer Asian wedding?
First Asian on Asian, Gaysian on Gaysian wedding that I've been to.
Wow.
So it was very cool.
I remember, I think I talked to you about this at the wedding. Like 22 years ago, I helped throw a banquet to celebrate the 20th anniversary of the original Wedding Banquet movie. And Ang Lee was there, the cast like Winston Chow and Mitchell Lichtenstein there, Roy Lichtenstein's son. And I feel like we've come full circle when we met you a couple years ago. Now you've done this. It's really exciting.
It's pretty wild, right? The legacy of the original film is, I think it means so much to so many, gay Asian people. And, I definitely felt a lot of pressure because people were telling me how much the Ang Lee film, means to them. And so I didn't, I wanted to do the film justice. And so I worked very hard on it, and I was very happy to have it be out there. I think by the time this airs, it'll be available to rent online, so people can watch it that way. But yeah, it's a very full circle thing. Like the Ang Lee movie was the first gay film I ever saw, and so it's a very meaningful journey.
Yeah, and at that wedding banquet, I was like, there were so many hot Asian guys.
Oh my God, it was insane.
It was like insta thirsty. I was like insta gay Asian guys for some reason.
There were all these guys I'd never seen before, but in person.
Like you're talking in Puerto Vallarta.
Yeah, in Puerto Vallarta. Like some of these guys I had never seen at a button down. I was like, oh wow, you look quite dashing. They're always like shirtless on Instagram. I think either Doncha or I always perform at these like Gaysian on Gaysian weddings. Like I sang at this one, and Doncha, you've hosted a few.
Mm-hmm. In drag.
Yeah,
I love it.
And for me, I always get emotional when I see the parents of just like. And I'd like create a romanticized story of the journey it took for the parents to walk these guys down the aisle. Similar to when I saw your movie, it's like the parents or the family is always just what gets me. And by the way, congratulations! Like the film is so fucking great. Like, we cried our eyes out, like by ourselves in the screener, and then we went to watch it in the theater, and re-cried at the points that we knew we would re-cry. Doncha, what did you feel about it?
Yeah, because, I also it was one of the early movies I saw probably when I was like 15 or 16. And I was worried, when I heard there was a remake coming, I was like, uh-oh. And I found out you were making, like, oh, great. But there's these thoughts I had about the original movie and like, what is really going to surprise me about the new one? And then I'm crying. And then I'm like, oh, great. He got me, that fucking bitch.
Oh no. Well, I'm glad that it resonated with you two, and I totally agree with you, Bao, that there's something about our parents and our families. Like weddings are so much about kind of this witnessing of love, right? And I think it's very special to have other people there, to really recognize the love that you have for each other. And so it's something that I definitely wanted to incorporate into the movie in some way. And in the Ang Lee film, it's definitely kind of father and son, and this one it's more about these matriarchs, about mother and grandmother. I remember at that Puerto Vallarta wedding, just like seeing the families and just being so moved that they spent so much time with us silly gay boys.
There was a full like, what did they do during that rave that we had at the end? Like, I'm like, what, or did they participate? I don't remember.
I remember that they made sure that they were all put on the same floor, the family, the furthest away from the music and the furthest away from all of our partying. And I think they just went to sleep early. Well, our version of early.
And so wait, so this movie's been out for a couple of weeks. Great reactions so far. What have been the reactions that have most surprised you?
I've talked to people who recently went through an IVF journey, and just the kind of highs and lows of that process. A lot of queer Korean people talking about coming out to their parents, to their grandparents. It's been really cool to talk to some folks, who are from Seattle, just like happy to see like Pacific Northwest queer Asian representation. It's been really cool to just have an audience really embrace the film. I could not have asked for a better platform for the movie. We had a wide release, which is really meaningful because like the film played in some very conservative cities. And I was taking a look at ticket sales, and even in the most conservative cities there were people going to see the movie, and I feel like it's really special that Bleecker Street believed in us in that way. It's the first time I've had a movie play theatrically. Fire Island was a streaming only movie. And so it's very cool that our stories are being centered, are being given a bigger platform. And, my hope is that I can just keep going and make more gay and Asian movies,
Were there any, I know you said like it hit conservative areas, and were there any major like differences in how people responded, like say non-queer Asians or straight folks, maybe parents? Have you spoken to many people on how they've received it?
I've talked to a few folks who are parents of queer children. I've talked to a few P-flag folks, and that's a part of the film. Joan Chen plays a P-flag mom. And it's been really cool. I think the film is so much about parenting and about how we care for each other. And I think that parenting is a really complicated, like nuanced process. Like we were kind of making fun of it a little bit at the beginning, where Joan Chen like wins an Ally Award, and the truth of it is that like, it's not like you win an award and you've figured out how to be a great parent. Like parenting is, a constant process. It's an evolution. And as your children grow, like your parenting has to grow too. And so, it's been fun to talk to, parents of queer kids. It's been interesting. We screened the movie at a festival outside of a big city, and Joan Chen and I were there, to do the Q&A, and we had this woman come up to us after and, congratulated Joan, and then said to us, it's like, oh, I don't agree with the lifestyle shown in the film, but congrats. And it was so strange that she like kind of went out of her way to be homophobic to us.
But also came to the movie.
Well, so that's something that I have to remember, that as upsetting as that moment was, I have to recognize that maybe that's a first step in this person's journey to understanding the humanity of queer people, to see an actress like Joan Chen, be a part of our project, and then to meet me, like maybe it's a longer journey for this particular person. She also may just be homophobic for the rest of her life and, whatever. But I hope that the film offers people the opportunity to have discussion and talk about, parenting, about marriage, about family and acceptance, about culture. There's a lot of different themes in the film that I think could spark a productive, healthy conversation about many different parts of our lives.
Yeah, and we talk about this on the podcast of just like with my mom. I feel like is she a Joan Chen P flag person? Absolutely not. But has each movie like this or each gay or queer person she's met nudged her more toward it? Absolutely. And it never happened overnight. And every time I thought she was at full acceptance, something does happen that makes her re-question things. And what I identified with the movie was like sort of like, okay, she has been through the coming out process and me accepting that I'm a gay adult. But as we enter this period in our middle-aged gay lives, which is what you present like really beautifully in the film, we're faced with a lot of questions about commitment and like making real choices as millennials. And then I realized my mom has to process that too. And so for my mom, it's sort of like, oh, I guess this isn't just the phase or just a lifestyle. You were in it for the second half of your life. You're going to be this. And it was another kind of learning point for her where her deep-rooted like homophobia really did kind of come to the surface and she had to deal with that. So I really hope that it's the latter with this person that you met, that it is like one of the nudges in a long series of nudges that'll bring her to acceptance.
Yeah. Is your mom asking you about marriage and kids?
She doesn't care about the marriage. She cares about the kids. She says, I just want a grandchild.
And how do you feel about that?
I honestly, I told my boyfriend I don't want kids. And after we watched The Wedding Banquet, it was like, wow, people who want kids really want kids. Like I'm not Lily Gladstone in this movie, and maybe I'm more the Kelly Marie Tran character. I don't know if that's a spoiler if you want us to talk about that, but
I'm cool.
Or the Bo and Yang character, so I identify with that. So like, oh, maybe it could be accidental, but you've said this in interviews before. Queer families having kids is never going to be accidental.
It's so intentional.
Yeah,
it's incredibly intentional. Yeah, it's
and expensive. So expensive. Asian folks, I'm not sure how we're paying for having kids. It feels antithetical to our nature.
I mean, it's so funny that you mentioned, Bao, that like that your mom wants grandchildren. Like I know a few like queer parents where their parents want grandchildren so badly that they're really putting in like money into it, because it's expensive. Not just to, go through an IVF process, but also, to like raise your child, right, is just so much money.
Even the adoption process, which is something new that I learned, that costs money too.
I mean, I was talking to someone about how for them it was actually weirdly cheaper and easier to kind of proceed through like surrogacy than it was adoption. That there's many challenges there. But yeah, it's fun to hear you say like, oh God, the people that really want kids, because that's kind of me,
Okay.
and
okay.
and it is a situation where like it almost I feel like the outlier, at least in like kind of the gay Asian community that I'm a part of, where I feel like most of us don't want to have children. And so for me to say I do feels like weirdly radical, even though it's maybe the more traditional choice, it's something that I have to like navigate and understand,
Yeah, we had two dads on here. once, just to try to, because we were reflecting on the same questions. Because sometimes I wonder, do I really just not want kids, or do I don't, or has that never been modeled for me as like a life I could have, so I don't believe I deserve it, or that I would fail at it. So you bring up a lot of those questions to the forefront in the movie. I think what I arrived at is like I really wanted kids around 30, and then I was single for a while, and I really want to raise a child with another partner. And I've recently got into a relationship at 40. And if we get married, like that's gonna take a few years. So by the time I feel stable enough to have a kid, I might be in my late 40s or mid 40s. Nothing wrong with that, but that's when I'm gonna have to revisit the question again. But after seeing your movie, I was like, wow, that is. Oh, they're going to take out another mortgage. I got to find a rich international like art student. Give me a deposit. Like the solutions were tough, right?
Yeah.
When you think of the financial realities of it all.
Yeah. Wait, don't you? What's your perspective
On kids? Oof.
Yeah.
I think I got to this age where I don't think it's really in the cards, and I don't think I ever really wanted kids. But when my sister a long time ago, she had this child and told me that they're going to put me as the what's it called, the
like godfather,
like a godfather. I didn't actually know what that meant. I thought it was just a symbolic thing. I didn't know there was a legal ramifications. And when I learned about it, I went through like weeks of these really weird like imaginations where like, okay, if my sister and her husband are killed in a crash and I'm going to take care of this kid and I'm going to do so well, she's going to be so cool. I'm going to be like the cool, like uncle dad. And I thought about those things and I thought about how good I could be, but also how hard it would be. It made me realize I'm not fully against it, but I'm not putting any work into it to make it happen. Like if it were to drop in my lap, like some course of events, like in the family, that I would not be mad about it. I'd be mentally prepared, but I'm not seeking it out.
That's so, yeah, that's very funny because I think it's, I think we need that kind of fate to happen in a way to us, because it is so, it's such a responsibility, right? So to like take that on and you kind of go after it proactively, there's so much pressure. The kind of joke of the film is that, you can't accidentally have a baby as queer people, but then actually in the film they do. That is part of what happens. I love this kind of nuance of kind of queer existence and queer family building that I don't think gets talked about enough, not just in like film and TV, but also just kind of amongst, our community. To be able to put that in a rom-com and make a movie, that people can see, it feels very special, especially after showing a different side of, Asian America, queer Asian America, like Fire Island and The Wedding Banquet, like are very different perspectives on, my existence. And, it's fun that I've been able to show kind of different sides of it.
So when you wrote these characters, like which character is most like you, or did you are they all a version of you?
I think with everything I've written so far, there's some connection to each character, but there are certain qualities to characters that are very me. I'm more the Lee and the Min, and my partner is more the Chris and the Angela. So that's kind of a clumsy, maybe reductive way to put it, but there's something about my attitude around marriage and about children that felt clear. But it's not exact. It's not exact.
Yeah. Chris, who is most like you? Which character?
Oh my God. I want to say that I identify with the rich Korean boy with like all this money in the background. And I also think it's an interesting, like modern take on the original. But who I probably most actually identify with is being an Asian lesbian and poor.
In your financial troubles right now. Right?
Yes. I mean, I do identify with the Pacific Northwest lesbian. It is how I've always. I liked to hike. I had the hair for it for a while. So I'm both of them together.
Yeah, my sister's a lesbian and always says that I give more lesbian vibes than she does.
Wait, why? How?
When I fall hard. I'm ready to commit real quickly. When I know, I'm full on U-Haul ready, and my boyfriend has to slow me down. But I think who I identified the most with in your movie was definitely just the Bowen Yang character. You wrote some great lines for him. My favorite line is, "Queer theory takes all the fun out of being gay."
It's true. It's true. I think if you overthink things, it's just like, oh, like it just takes the joy out of it. I love Bowen, and I loved, writing this character, and I think that of the right actor for the right part. I just think so much about like, millennial gay Asians, and like we have options, but it's almost like having too many options like makes us freeze, like we kind of get paralyzed. But yeah, I think that character of Chris was based on so many various like friends of mine, and my partner, and it just kind of made sense to cast a friend, and so to have Bowen play that role like meant a lot to me.
Did he ad-lib a lot of the lines? I felt like there were so many. Yeah, the Chris character is different than Bowen, but I felt like there were a lot of Bowenisms.
There's some really fun, Bowen ad-libs. Like Bowen is just so talented, and he kind of makes he just kind of makes the creative choices that like surprise you. There's a moment in the film where he like picks up the phone and he says "Hey," and he's trying to sound really cool, and like that always gets a big laugh in the film, and it wasn't written as a joke. Like he just kind of dug the joke out of it in a way that I think it takes a really talented performer. But yeah, like this is the second time I've worked with Bowen, and I just find him so like vulnerable and generous, and like sympathetic as a performer in this way that is very, very special and hard to find.
Yeah, he was amazing in the movie.
Actually, when I first met you, I was a little bit starstruck because you were introduced to me as the director of Spa Night, which I loved. I saw that in the theaters at the film fest because I was such a film fest geek back then. And at that time, I loved coming of age films and loved seeing this boy coming of age in a Korean bathhouse, because maybe in my life I was just introduced to bathhouses, Asian bathhouses.
So I also came of age in bathhouses.
But tell me about like that spa night experience, and also like, does it align with like how you were in life? Because now you were saying that you talked about is kids in your thing, but was Spa Night and this coming of age film, were you kind of coming of age? Are your movies aligning with your life path too?
What are you asking me? What are you insinuating?
It's up for interpretation by you.
I'll say that like Spa Night, I definitely think is reflective of kind of my mindset, my attitudes about queerness and Korean American identity at the time. I rewatched the film maybe 2 years ago, and it really felt like, oh, like that's a younger version of myself, you know? And it feels still truthful, although maybe not like, you know, I wouldn't make that film today. You know, there's elements of that are like autobiographical, and then there's things that are fully made up, you know, like like the main character in Spa Night is an only child to kind of add to the family pressure. And it's like, I have an older brother and, you know, like it's not exactly the same, but the cruising Korean spa stuff, like I found that out through a Gaysian friend of ours, like in, you know, the circle. And he told me that he had a hot hookup at Lion Spa, which no longer exists. But it was something that I had never heard of, you know, and thought was just so like crazy sounding, because I, you know, had gone to Korean spas with my family, you know, since I was little. And so it was one of those things where it was kind of a amalgamation of all these different kind of inspirations and feelings and ideas, but always had to feel kind of emotionally truthful to me. You know, I had no kind of expectation that the film would play in theaters or that it would get into film festivals. You know, I just wanted to make something that felt kind of as me as possible in a way. And yeah, I owe my career to that movie. You know, if I didn't make that film, I would not be where I am today. And I in many ways would love to go back and make something like that again, you know, maybe with a different perspective, but, you know, just another queer Asian coming of age film, drama, you know. It would be a lot of fun.
Yeah, we love it. I mean, I loved it too when I first saw it at like I forgot which film festival. And even if it did not represent your life, I think we're projecting, because the cruising at a Korean spa represented my life at the time. And maybe it's the same friend that we have who tipped you on to the cruising at the Korean spa. But I also heard a little rumor that you do not have to deny or confirm that you shot it at a spa that I used to go cruise at as recent as 2 years ago. That is recently closed, so rest in peace, that spa.
I think it's the same spa. I mean, you might recognize like the blue neon light. But yeah, like it's so funny. Like, I think I went to every Korean spa like in SoCal, you know, scouting for the movie. And
I thought you meant cruising.
To write the movie as research.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it's so funny. It's like, if you look for it, it happens everywhere. Like, men are horny and shameless, and I think it's really funny. I mean, even, you know, it's just like at like gyms, like, you know, forget about spas, just like gym locker rooms, you know. But you know, like that's something that I think is very common amongst queer people, that like, you know, our desires kind of lead the way, right? Like that's how you kind of understand your sexuality, is like, it's just like, it's physical, it's biological, right? And then the identity kind of follows, you know, like it takes time to find your community and, you know, go to Rage, go to Game Boy, you know. But there's something about, yeah, like it's all kind of sex and horniness first.
Yeah, and again, we're projecting the fact that this may have been your experience because you represented our experiences so well back to us. So Spa Night, it's like that coming of age, Fire Island, like early 30s. And I know Joel Kim Booster wrote it, but for us, it was about like the finding of community, or that found family at that age, and also like the finding of love. And then now with Wedding Banquet, it's sort of like at this age when we're going to have to make some choices as millennials. And what I find like why these movies are so iconic is because like you're actually a part of the Gaysian community. You mentioned Rage, so you're a card-carrying member of a former card-carrying member of Rage. You go to the famed 321 parties by Chris here in LA.
I lived there. I lived in the
lived
photo
in
booth
321.
room.
You
I've
did.
heard so many stories of this 321 household, and I thought before that it was just like a club, and I didn't realize it was your
It
home.
is, though.
Yes.
It's both. It's kind of both.
I finally
and-
visited it.
And I think the best accomplishment recently, like I'm sure you came out with a movie called The Wedding Banquet, but you got a table at Switch in April. that is like bona fide, authentic Asian right there.
She's made it. She made it.
I've always been
girl.
seeking Gaysian community, right? Like whether it's making a film or a Korean spa or Game Boy. I will say that I was reminiscing with some of the 321 boys about Game Boy, and I said I really miss it. I miss Game Boy. And then one of them said, do you miss Game Boy or do you just miss being young?
I was about to say.
I was like, oh, I feel so old. Like for me, it's my friend group, and it's endlessly inspiring, right? Like there's so many stories, so many different personalities, so many different characters, why not keep telling queer and Asian stories, right? Like for me, that's it's where I have the most insight, because I've spent the most time with us, like I guess I could go and make a straight white people movie, but like what would I have to say about them? Like what insight do I really have into that experience? I'd rather like kind of stay in this community and champion it, and get to like maybe I'll make another movie and then I can get table service at Switch again.
I think you'll probably have like eternal table duties. You just give Liam a text and he'll give you a table.
And I'm putting it out there. I need to be in your next movie in drag.
You want?
Yes, and you have to hire a makeup artist for me though, because you don't want me to do it.
What if I had you and Shumai audition for the same part?
Okay, a battle royale.
I think we know who's gonna get the part, and that's not Donja. Well, I'm putting it out there that I would also like my own table at Switch one day, without paying. So Liam,
I think
hook it up.
I mean, literally, Gaysians isn't getting you bottle service at Switch.
No, not yet.
Oh.
One day it will.
We're putting it out there now. You hear
We're
us,
putting
Danny?
it out there. Well, I think a question that we get a lot from our listeners is, so that you're in this Gaysian community. How did you find that community, or would you have? And do you have any advice for someone looking for that community?
Yeah, I remember moving back to Los Angeles after college and just wanting to meet other queer and Asian people. And I was invited to join this Facebook group called Queerians, which is kind of an
Facebook
awkward,
group.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Instead of queer Koreans, they just Queerians.
Did Steve run that? Did Steve?
So
Cha run
Steve
that?
Cha was a part
You
of
mentioned
that.
Yeah.
And Steve organized a get together at Hamburger Mary's, and then we would go to Game Boy after, and that was really the beginning of kind of finding the community. Steve was the one that introduced me to the 321 boys. I met Chris and Jimmy, and when I was looking for a place to live, they invited me to live there. And honestly, like, I don't think I would have been able to make a living as a filmmaker had I not had the cheapest rent, in Los Angeles, because we were living in such terrible conditions. But at least we had each other, it was fun because we were friends and there was community. But yeah, I remember those early days. It was going to Game Boy, and for years I think I was there every Friday. It was such a big part of my coming of age, and just building this kind of foundational friend group that has continued to just grow as I've gotten older. Yeah, I think it can be really difficult. But there are organizations, like in college, I went to a coming out support group for queer people, queer Asian people, and that was how I learned about this queer Korean organization in New York called the Dari Project. And I think that's actually how I got invited into that Facebook group. There's ways to find us, and I think now with social media, there's probably even more. But it was a kind of slow process at the beginning, but it's really snowballed.
Yeah, I think now people actually they recognize Chris at cafes. Chris always tells me, and they're like, "Hey, I see you throw these parties, and I would like to meet more Gaysians." And I make fun of him because once like a 22-year-old went like, "Hey, I just came out and I want to meet more Gaysians," and I told Chris like, "So you're gonna invite him to a party full of 40-year-olds, like 40 middle-aged Gaysians."
There's, I love that, just in Los Angeles, right? We have Q&A, we have Queer Asian Social Club, Hot Pot in K-Town. We've got Bubble Tea in New York. There are different groups kind of bubbling, and that to me is it's very cool that it's not just like one thing. Of course, we talked about Switch already. There are people and there are gatherings. It's very meaningful for me, with film. The queer and Asian film festivals. You've got CamFest and Frameline and Outfest and Visual Communications. There's places that you can go, but it does take kind of a first step, and I tell people it's like you could go up to Chris Laquang,
just DM him, you'll get an invite.
He's an extrovert, he loves meeting new people.
Yeah.
I'm gonna change gears a little bit. It's for my least favorite topic that Val forces me to begrudgingly talk about. It's time for the Be Real. When we talk about our feelings, essentially you're our guest. We'll go first, but
okay.
So you can think about whatever's on your mind, heart or whole. So I'll go first.
By the way, my boyfriend, every other day, makes fun of the fact that we say hearts, minds, and holes. He just always whenever I say something snappy to him or make fun of his TikTok content, he's just like, "Well, it's time to be real."
Well, this is the same boyfriend that told you to get over the cringe.
Yeah, he did. But sort of, that helps me get over the cringe. See, we're leading into the cringe. Okay, might be real. I'm gonna make it quick because we don't have that much time. So I recently took my first ever trip with my dad, 80-year-old dad. His dream has been to go to Japan, and I've been meaning to take him, but Ep kept putting things off. And I realized I always prioritize bachelor parties, 40th birthday trips, but this is important, and that time is ticking for how my dad can enjoy Japan in his age. And the thing that really pushed me over the edge was my friend last year lost his mom suddenly, and in the eulogy said, "I promised to take my mom to all these places and I wasn't able to, and I regret that." And I was like, I'm gonna just figure out a way to get my dad to Japan. And because it was gonna cost me a lot of money, and I was so kind of proud of myself for being a good son doing it, I definitely romanticized what the trip would be like. Because I just got back and everyone asked me how it was. I'm like, we narrowly missed murdering each other. Because I had not ever spent 7 full days with my dad. And I thought it would be great because in the pandemic, me and my dad didn't really talk much after I came out. But then in the pandemic, because we were both just might as well just live together because we can't see anybody. We kind of built a relationship. So it felt really good that we had a relationship after coming out and that we've healed some things. But going on that trip, man, I realized his age. He fights me on everything. He tells me to make a right somewhere. I'm like, you've never been to this fucking country. What are you talking about? And his memory issues were frustrating to him, but also to me. Losing his phone 3 times a day, passport 3 times a day. Asian person who loves to travel with thousands of dollars in cash, like no credit cards, but just thousands of dollars in cash. So always nervous about losing it, like it's a war-torn country. Obviously, there's a bunch of things going on there with him, a bunch of things going on there with me that we have never had to explore or forced to going on this trip. And it took me around like the last few days to finally accept that he's who he is. He's finally accepting things for us to have a good time. So my Be Real is just like, why did the people who travel with their parents never tell you how hard it is? Because I feel like on Instagram, it just looks like, oh, we have this amazing healed relationship because I've been to therapy and my parents are now enjoying things. Once I brought this up, a bunch of people were like, no, Bao, 60% of it's like terrible.
Everyone shows only the bad part or the good parts.
Everyone shows only the good parts. So I'm going to normalize that when you travel with your parents, it's okay for them to drive you fucking nuts, for you to swear you'll never take them on a trip again, but for it all to still be worth it in a weird, strange way in the end. So that is just where I'm kind of at right now. Just like full acceptance, but wow, that like really exhausted me.
It reminds me when I got laid off, I thought it would be a great idea to take my mom to Vegas the next day. It's like exactly as you describe it. It was one night and all we did was yell at each other. Just to get her to cross the street. It was insane. I mean,
yeah,
I don't regret it, but it was awful.
I need to buy this thing and it's the only thing I want to do. I want to eat this thing, but it's the only thing I want to eat. I spent 2 hours trying to find it. Get there. It's too expensive. I don't want to eat anymore. It's like, but of course, like I've talked to a bunch of my friends and some friends are just like, okay, I hear you and I feel you. I don't have my dad anymore. I don't have my mom anymore. I would give anything to even be annoyed at them on a trip. And I was like, well, fine, I feel like an asshole. But I just want to normalize the fact that it can be really frustrating in the moment.
Was there a nice moment that you can hold on to?
My dad was journaling on the plane back. And of course I can see everything because the font on his phone's like this big. And this is toward the way there. It was on the way there. It was April 30th. So the 50 years of when he got on a helicopter and left Saigon as a refugee. And it was like and the title was Fall of Saigon to Japan Trip. And he wrote about like as living in Vietnam, he always viewed Japan as super aspirational because it's like this rich country that Vietnamese people will never get to go to. And so the fact he got to go to it was amazing. And I was like, aw. And in the end, he mentioned it again. And so for me, it's just like, that's all worth the fact that we're in a screaming match over whether to pack a plastic bag that I thought we should throw away. Anyway, that was the moment that I thought was great.
That's cool.
It's cute.
How about you, Chris?
I'll keep this short because I was thinking about like you as a filmmaker and like the things that sparked you, what to do, and like other artist friends, and they all have these moments of like these catalyst moments, like either with their parents about what made them become an actor, love to paint or make music. And I was just in an interview with someone saying that their parents, their mom, read to them every night. And I just goes, my parents didn't read to me. Who did your parents read to you every night? It felt like such a very American thing, a Western thing, and that I did not have. And it initially makes me feel like resentment, but it's also like, oh, it's cultural. They were both working to like keep the roof over our heads. And so it just got me feeling some sort of a way where I felt like I got the short end of the stick sometimes. But I can speed read, so fuck that. I did well without them. I was part of the gift program, which means that if you're older now, you have ADHD.
I feel like my parents like tricked me, and they were like, oh no, like read to yourself, and I was like, yeah, I could, like, I'll do that, and and then yeah,
and now you're out here making stories, telling
and
stories.
now I'm telling stories, writing screenplays. Yeah. My Be Real. I'll say I am frustrated with Twink death. I think if we want to be 40-year-old twinks, or if we want to be skinny or flabby, that we should be allowed to be skinny or flabby. It's so funny. Like everybody's like lifting weights, and I'm just like, oh, like they're so heavy. Weights
You're
are
right.
heavy.
I don't know how these people are like, I'm benching 200 pounds. I'm like, I got these 20s.
It's for me like such a fascinating, like I don't know what it is about us millennial queer people, but it is just like, oh, like everybody's doing strength training, and I'm like, wow. And I get that that's healthy. I get that that's like, we need that. But yeah, I just, I feel like why twink death? It's just so sad. I don't want to mourn, I don't want to mourn twink identity. But I guess I don't know. It's just the natural state of things. I think that the twink to bear like Pokemon evolution is very funny to track amongst our friends.
And some of them, yes, most of them partake in that evolution. And then like these two friends just had a kid, and they also just released a photo shoot of them in 8-packs. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Is this like the Instagram muscle guys with kids? Something
Yeah,
like
and
that.
I was just like, wow, some people will never die their twink death, or maybe we don't see what's going on or how much work that goes into it, or maybe they're commemorating this body before the twink death. But I'm just like, some people go toward it, some people never get to it, and I obsess over the people who never get to it, unfortunately.
To add a little context to that, maybe, like it says for health, with the advent of PrEP and the chances of lower calcium, we need to work out to keep our bones strong. I am constantly worried about my mom, like falling. She falls out of her bed. I don't want her to break those bones, and me taking care of her. It's practical as much as it is for the visuals.
Is that a thing? Like taking PrEP like lowers your calcium level?
There is a
density.
correlation. It doesn't happen for everyone. The new other PrEP, like Descovy, has a lower chance of that, but it affects some people. So take your calcium, do weights, and I guess go have sex. Is that what it is?
Wow, the more you know. I didn't know that. I will say that people say like, oh, like, if you fall, like you could like break a limb, like break a bone. And then, it's like when you're older, it's a longer healing process. And I had my first like really bad fall, like, as like an adult, where I like thought I broke my arm. And this was like the day before the Wedding Banquet premiere, and I was like scared. I was like on the ground, like scared that I had like broken something. And thankfully I was all right. But it is a thing where I'm just like, oh, like I am losing my coordination. Like you never know what's gonna trip you up, and so yeah, it's we're just getting older.
Yeah, I've always been clumsy, but I'm just extra clumsy now. But that's all the time that we have, because I know you have to go. Thank you, Andrew, and congrats. And the Wedding Banquet's now available to purchase to watch digitally. So we will re-cry again for a third time at this one pivotal scene with Young Yejun. So good. And again, thank you for always representing us through every stage of this life. Whether it represented your life or not, it represented it for us. So,
okay.
But no, thank you.
But to send us off, just one more quick question for you. Might be real personal. What was your favorite 3-2-1 party theme? Because they're all themed, I've heard, and they're all
all
clever.
themed. Yes.
I think the most fun theme was Asian Glow. It was the black light party, I just think I like painted a giant like radioactive bucket, like barrel. And it was just so stupid. And Asian Glow is also like such a specific like Asian, like terminology. But But yeah, it's that one's probably one of my favorites, but there's so many. There's so many. Home Alone also stands out to me. That was stupid. They're all great. They're all great.
Mine, just the Met Gala just passed, but Tet Gala was one of my favorite ones.
Oh my God, that's so good.
And I was like, wait, and in preparation for this question, I actually asked Chris, like, have you kept stock of every 3-2-1 party theme? He sent me a like 150 slide deck. It's like it was all, each theme was there from like 2018. It was wild.
Wow.
Historian, Gaysian historian.
Organized, yeah.
I think, I think it's gonna go down in history, like 3-2-1. It's just like I'm hoping that there's some like rival gang. It's like West Side Story, and we can like meet in WeHo and like snap fingers and dance battle. But yeah.
So with that, we're gonna sign off. Andrew, where can people follow you on the socials?
So they can find me at Andrew on Films.
Awesome. And you can like and subscribe to us at Literally Gaysians on Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok. Thanks for tuning into this bonus episode. We may have more in store for you before we launch season 3 in the summer.
Till next time. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.